So next we have Mitanshu, who this is going to be a great presentation. Not wishing to put pressure on you there, but the first user group presentation for you, and you are so welcome. It's great to see people grow in an organisation and then come onto the user groups and speak, not just from the engaging with businesses and getting those businesses to share their experience with us, but as a citizen developer and somebody who's come through a great process that I know you've got there with Chai. So I'm going to again hand over to you. Let's put up your bio so that everybody can see who you are. And I'll let you tell us about your Special Agent 018 tag and how you got that reputation, and hopefully some stuff about your Fantastic Fridays and what you've been sharing there as a group. So again, I'm going to hand over to you if you want to share your screen and let us know about your daily use Power Automate tips.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sharon, for having me here and for letting me have my debut session. So hi everyone, my name is Mitanshu Garg and I work for Schlumberger. We are in the oilfield service company. So I started with the Power Platform quite recently, roughly a year and a half ago, when we were at the very start of the pandemic. So I realized, the downturn in the oil and gas industry and the pandemic itself was a perfect opportunity to streamline our processes, cut out the waste and leverage the power of the Power Platform. And luckily in Schlumberger, we have Alan Shai, who's an MVP, and he's also one of the Power Apps champ. And he's been an excellent mentor and guide to me personally throughout this journey. And he's helped me grow into this. And yeah, today I'm going to share some of the back to basics tips using Power Automate and Dataverse as the data source. So there's some just back to basics, kind of a refresher for us. So if you can see my slides, I've got 12 years of working experience with Schlumberger. I've been in various engineering roles. So I've been in manufacturing quality roles. So when I'm interacting with the business on their use case, I kind of know the language they are speaking. I know their pain points. So I'm able to easily identify, what areas should I address first, where is the automation needed the most. Through this journey, I've developed a few Power Apps and Power Automate, which has helped greatly the business in, gaining some productivity, returning some hours back to the business so that, our people, our teams, they can focus on what is most important and some of the mundane tasks that can be left to the cloud to handle. So in terms of my social media bio, so I have posted my Twitter profile on the chat window, but I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn. And with regards to the special agent tag, so this is a special program that Alan runs within Schlumberger. So now he alone cannot solve a lot of, all the business problems given the size of the organization. So he's strategically picking up people who he thinks would be able to be, able to carry the mission forward and expand the leverage on the power of this opportunity that we have from Microsoft to make our operations better. So with that introduction, I'll move on to today what I'm going to share. So again, back to basics. So we'll see some live demo on how we can do error handling when we are building our cloud flows. We would look at concurrency control, so how we can make our flows run even quicker than they currently do. And finally, we'll do a thesis or we'll do a good deep dive into working with arrays. And I'm going to use Power Automate, again, obviously Power Automate, but Dataverse would be the backend that I would be using. So with that, I would quickly switch over to my browser. Right, so thank you again. So I've got a Dataverse table here. It's in my default environment. And what I've got here is a fake data. So a big Game of Thrones fan there, as you can see. I've got a simple column. So there are two text columns with name and the house, and I've got a whole number column with the points. So if I go back there, so these are the three custom columns. So whole number, text, and text. And the name of my columns, they are prefix CR9EE. So what we are going to do is we'll start with the error handling. So we'll build a flow And in each of the flows, I'll use a manual trigger. So, it's not linked to anything, but it can easily be replaced by any of the automated or scheduled triggers. So the first one is our error handling flow. Now, what we would do is our use case scenario is our user will give us a number, and we want to find out all the records which are above that threshold. So we'll just call it points threshold. So enter a number, and the next step we are going to do is get our value from the dataverse. We are going to pull the rows out which satisfy the criteria that your points are above that number. Now we are going to introduce an error so that our user will give us, for example, a decimal number. Now, as we saw on our column definition, it's a whole number. So if our user gives a decimal number, it's going to fail. So we are going to see how we can catch those errors at runtime. So in this case, we are going to use the list rows function from Dataverse. In the table name, I'm going to use my dummy table. So Game of Thrones, and filter rows, I'm going to use my column name, which was over here, CR99_points. So this is one thing different between, I've recently started working on Dataverse. Difference is this suffix. So that is something, very important to keep in mind. So this is greater than the points the user has specified. So if I run this flow now, and if I enter a bad data, it would give me an error. And as a developer, I won't know that an error has happened. So what we would do after this, once we create a failure, we will try to fix it so that every time a failure happens, as a developer, we can be notified about it. So if I enter 1.2, it's expecting a whole number, but because I'm giving it a decimal, so I should now see a flow run failed. And again, because it was expecting a whole number. So what we can do to fix this error is, well, one way is, okay, of course, convert it into a whole number. However, there can be certain scenarios where you have not, totally handled the case. So you want to be notified every time your flow run fails. So to do that is what we do in traditional programming is try-catch blocks. So we are going to implement the same try-catch method in our flow as well. So we create a scope, and within the scope, we are going to put certain actions. So I'm dragging and dropping my list rows in the scope, and I'm calling it a try block. What would happen is when this flow is triggered, again, it will run so far so good. However, in the further, I'm going to create another scope, and I'm going to call this as catch. The name is, of course, does not matter. It's just for ease of readability. But the trick over here is to configure the run after. So I'm going to configure run after, and I'm going to say that my catch should only run once the try has failed. So what will happen is when the try fails, in general, I mean, if I did not have this, all my subsequent actions will not run. But now if try fails, the catch block would run. And over here, what I can do is I can send an email to the developer that, hey, something has gone wrong, and this was the error message. And at the same time, if the try blocks runs perfectly fine, I want to execute the remaining portion of the code. So I'm going to call it as finally. So if try is successful, it will go into the final. If try is a failure, it will go into the catch block. So over here, I'm just going to, for the purpose of the demo, I'm just going to check the length of the, how many rows has come out. And in the catch block, I'm going, so I've used the length expression to get the how many rows came out. Within the catch block, now over here, I'm going to find out, what was the error, because there could be, multiple actions within the try block. So I need to know what was the error message. So for that, I'm going to use an expression called result. And within that, I'm going to give the name of my scope. So I'll give try as the as an argument within this expression. So what this will give is it will give me a JSON which will have detail about every single step in the scope. Now I have only one, so it will be an array of a single JSON object. And if I had multiple actions, it will create one single JSON object for every single action. And that will tell me whether which part was failure, which part was not. And I can just take this and email it to myself. So every time this flow is run, there is an error, I can get an email, and that email would contain what failed. I can further enhance it by giving the link to the flow run as well. So if you look, every flow run has a certain, it follows a certain pattern. So we can make it even better by giving link to the run. So over here, I'm going to put a compose action. I'm going to use concat function, and I'm going to construct my link to the URL. So in the interest of time, what I have done is, I have pasted it here. So this would go in the expression builder. And this will give me the link to the run. So every time there was a failure, it will tell me what was the failure about. So if we run this flow now, well, prior to doing this link to run, I wanted to show you one more thing, which was the workflow function itself that we used to build the link to the run. So if I change this to workflow. So let me delete this. So if I run it now again, I give the same, bad input of 1.2. So the system is expecting a whole number, but I've given it an integer. It still failed. However, after this, my catch block, it ran successfully. You can see that by the green tick. And within the result, we have got we've got an output. Now, I usually do is I went to this website called JSON Editor Online, and just to visualize how my output looks like. So it is telling me that it's an array. It starts with a square bracket. So I got an array, and it's for each of my step within the scope. It will give me what happened. So at the very bottom, it's telling me the message, and it's telling me what is the failure log. And I can take this and email it to myself every time a failure happens. And if we come to the workflow, it is going to give me everything about this run. So it is telling me that my environment name is that's my environment ID. It is telling me my run details. So this is the run ID, and I can use this to construct a link to the flow run. So if I go back and click on this particular run, so this particular URL I can construct using the workflow function. In the email where I'm sending the error message, I can also send the URL. So as a developer, every time a failure happens, I'm immediately notified, okay, this is the failure. This was the name of your flow. This was the particular URL, and I can easily troubleshoot there and then when it happens. And in case, of course, I mean, if we provide a proper input, then it would run. So if I provide a whole number as 25, it will go in and give you so over here the try succeeded, so the catch block did not happen, and it went into the finally, and all we had was length. So it is showing me that okay, there are 16 rows which are above that particular points threshold. So that concludes my first point on my agenda, was going through the error handling. So is there any questions on that one before I move to the second part of the demo?
Sorry, I'm struggling to come off mute there. No, just a lot of great thanks and appreciation for the patterns that you're showing us there, and really just thanking you for sharing that content. Really great. Keep going.
Okay, so the second thing we had was concurrency control. So I'm again going to select a manual trigger. Now, in this one, what we are planning to do is our use case is we are going to update the points for every single of our rows. We'll put a random number for the sake of this demo between two numbers. Now, what we'll do is we'll get the rows, and then we'll go ahead and update it. So that would be our first step. And then in the second, so we'll see how long it takes. And then we'll try to adjust one particular setting and run it again in a concurrent mode and see how long that takes. So basically making our flow a little bit quicker. So again, I'll use the same thing, Dataverse as the data source. I'll list all rows. So I'm not using any OData filter query because I want to get everything out. And then I'll loop through each of them and randomly assign a value to it. So I'll apply through, I'll loop through them and I'll update the row. So I pick up my my table. So within the row ID, so the row ID is in SharePoint, of course, you have your just the ID, but within this, I have to use my suffix, my prefix, sorry, CR9EE in this case, and then the table ID name. So that would be my row ID. The name is similar to the title in SharePoint. And sorry, I did a small error there. So again, this is pretty standard that you're updating a row, and in points I'm putting my random function, and I'm going to give points between 10 and 100. So if I save and run this, we've got quite a few rows, like 18 odd rows within the table. So it should take 12 to 15 seconds to go through all of them and update this. So it's still running. So in this case, it took 10 seconds because our data size had only 19 rows. But in case you have hundreds of rows, this is going to take quite a lot of time. So what Power Automate does provide us is we can go to the settings, we turn on this concurrency control feature, and degree of parallelism is how many threads would go on at the same time. So if I say okay, do 20, like keep the default setting. And if I try to run this again, in theory, it should take less than 10 seconds to run. So I mean, it's telling me, it took a second to update all your 19 rows. So with just a single setting change in your apply to each action, you have made your flow 10 times more efficient in case of 19 rows. If there were more than that, the efficiency gains would be much higher in this case. So that was the second back to basics tip that I wanted to share today. So the third one I have is going through different ways of working with arrays. So different functions, different expressions that we have available when we are working with arrays. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create two arrays first, and I'm going to use my same data. So in the first one, I'm going to create an array which has all the elements from the name column. And my second array would be where I'm filtering by one of the columns, and I'm just going to create a smaller array. And then we are going to go through various things like, does it contains a particular element? What is the length of the array? Empty, not empty, first, last. We're going to do various things. So we'll go through list rows to begin with. So the first one, I'm going to get all my rows. So list all, just list all rows. And from here, I'm going to pick out only the name column. So this now gives me a array which has the first name column within from the table. Now, if I test and run this one, so you can see the output in this case is all the names that we had. So now we have got an array. So what are the various things we can do with it? So we'll go through each of them. We'll create a compose action and then go through each one of them. So the first one is, if you want to check whether your array has come out to be empty or not. So that could be, used if you want to, if you want to check whether a particular item exists in your SharePoint in your Dataverse or not. So you run your list rows query, you use your ODATA filter, and then you can use the length expression to check whether the resultant is empty or not. If it's empty, the input string did not exist in your data table. So there are two ways to check the empty or not. So the first one is, pure simple empty function. So within the empty, you pass the array. So in this case, we've got this output from there. So this will return a true or a false, and this true or a false is again very important. You can use this in your condition block as well. So in our case, it should give me false because we saw there were quite a few names in there. The other way to check the length is again using the length expression. So while empty is giving you the attribute data, whether it is empty or not, the length expression gives you exactly how many elements are present. So if there are 0 elements present, of course it is empty, right? So if empty is true, this length would also give you a 0. If there is a length value in there, the empty would give you a false. So at this stage, I go and run it. So our empty has come out false because we do have some elements in there, and our length has given us how many total outputs that we have received. The other expressions that we have available when you're working with arrays is called contains element. You can check this to see whether a particular item exists in your a particular element exists within your array or not. So if I want to see, contains, so I'm using my array, and if I want to see whether my name exists there or not, so I'm going to use the contains expression. And this will give me a true or a false value if something exists or does not exist. Then, the next things that we can do with an array is to get a certain element out of it. So if you want to get, there are two functions, two expressions available within Power Automate to get a particular element out. So the first one is to get the first element out, we use the first expression. So within first, we pass the array itself, and it will give me the first element out. And if I want the last, then the expression is to use the last expression. Okay, so if you see, our first element here is Ned, and the last one is Branstock. So when I come here, so it gives me the first element and the last element, and contains gave me true because my name was present in that array. So while this gives me the first and the last, if I want to find out something in the middle, so there is a roundabout way for it, and you have an expression called skip. So what it does is skip gives you another array, right? But it will leave out the first few steps. So what it will do is it will if I want to get the second element out, what I'll do is I'll use the skip expression. It will give me another array. It will not excluding the first element, and then I can use the first on top of it. So if I need to get the second out, what I would put is skip and then the first. So I'm combining two expressions together so that I can get my second element out of it. So, and I mean, the same can be done for in any of them. Now, in case, you run out, I mean, the number you have provided is much more than the length, then you put that under the try block and then catch the error accordingly in case, something like that happens in the runtime. So this is giving me the second element from my original. So my second was here, Rob Stock, and if I look down there, my second element is coming here. So I'm combining my first and this skip expression together to get a desired element. So I don't get this, pick up something in the middle out of the box, but I can create it using a combination. The other two expressions and the last two expressions I wanted to show were about the union and intersection. So for that, we'll create, so one way of, getting your array is, of course, querying your data source, but you can also initialize your own arrays. So I'm going to create two array elements now. I've created two variables which are of type array A and B, and they have some recurring elements in there. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a few fives. And over here, I've got, fives, 6, 7, and a few repeats there. So what we are going to do is we are going to look at two different expressions. So the first one is union and the other one is intersect. They both result in array as well. So I use my expression union. So what union does is it will give you all the elements between the two arrays, but the duplicates will occur only once. So in a way, you are kind of getting, distinct elements from the two of them. So if I put A and B, and the order is not does not matter in this case. So this will give you the union. So what it is doing is it is removing duplicate will only occur once, and all the elements, it will combine. It is union. It's putting both the elements together, both the arrays together, and showing the duplicate only one time. And then the other expression you have, when combining the two arrays is called intersection. What intersection will do, it will give you the common elements between the two arrays. So if a single thing is oh, sorry, if a single element is present in two of them, then it will just give you that that element out, and the output in both the cases is in form of an array. So if you got two different SharePoint lists or two different Dataverse arrays, and you want to see what is common between the two, you can use the intersection, and that will give you the common output. Now again, if you have a array which contains a list of email address, and you want to check whether it is present in a different SharePoint list or not, use the intersection, and from the resultant array, you can use the empty or the length function to find out whether there was any common element or not. So if I run this union and intersection together, so in the union, I'm seeing a combination of all, and you would see that the 4 was duplicate, the fifth number 5 was duplicate, but they are only coming once. And in the intersection, you would see number 5 because that is the only thing common between the two A and B that we have created. So in A, we go from 1 to 5, and over here, we start from 5 onwards. So the only thing common between them was number 5, and that is what is coming within the intersection. Now, if within a single array you want to see a distinct, distinct list of elements, so you have a list of user feedback, for example, you're storing the email address, and you want to find out, a single list of all the email address which have submitted a query, and you don't want to repeat them. So you can use the union function, and you can pass on the same variable twice. So if I do that, if I show you this, so if union, now within our array number A, we had the number 4 coming a lot of time. So if I just, union of array A with array A itself, so what it would do, it will give you the distinct values which are present in the array number A. Again, distinct is not something out of the box, so we are using union to create it ourselves. So it has given me 1 to 5, and number 5, which was repeated multiple times in A, has been removed. So think of it as a list of email address in a SharePoint list column, and you want to get out only the distinct values out of them. You don't want to email them multiple times, even if they come a lot. So that is how you would do it. Union of same array with itself. So that is a quick tips which I had for working with arrays. So we have the empty, the length expression contains, first, last, and if you want to get something from the middle, we use the skip, union and intersection, and union with itself gives you the distinct function. So that is all I had for today's presentation. Happy for questions and discussions.
That was absolutely awesome. I mean, the speed at which you're typing and bringing those things up, it's clear that you're in this tool every day. And again, it's just a reminder of some of the patterns that are there and some of the stuff with arrays, which I find one of the most frustrating ways of dealing with some data. So that was really nice to see some refreshers there on the kinds of actions that are available and stuff that I probably haven't thought about the data in that way for some time, because it's not a natural, do you know what I mean? I normally think about data in terms of connectivity and tables and structure, whereas a simple array is often exactly what you need, and one of those things that you work with a lot. So yeah, really great content. And I think aside from a couple of negatives around the Power Platform, Power Apps not being quite as flexible as Power Automate, which is fair in terms of looping and try catch, etc. Everybody's just been really enthusiastic about the content that you're putting forward there. So absolutely great. Thank you for that. I don't think there are any specific questions, and I know a few people have had to drop off as we get into the end of the session, but really clear, really concise, fantastic first user group presentation, I've got to say, and I will definitely have you back for more if you've got more hints and tips that you want to share with the user group in the future.
Thank you for having me.
You're more than welcome. I'm just going to share a few slides at the end here just to close off the session. There's your slide there. If you want to put in the chat how we can get in touch with you and how we can follow you on LinkedIn and Twitter, Mitanshu, that'd be brilliant. Thank you so much for coming along. So just a few extra bits and pieces. And just to remind everybody that we do have a YouTube channel. It's actually my YouTube channel, but we have a Cambridge Power Platform user group section on there where you can see all of the past events, or since we started recording them, maybe not quite back to Peter Vinkstra's first explanation of the try catch, which I remember very vividly because it was our very first user group. So really great to have revisited that technology today. But you can visit our sessions on the YouTube channel, come along and see the content of previous presenters on there. And these sessions will be up there in a couple of days. We also have some information about how to be a sponsor, so please do sponsor our channel. And we use the Patreon, I'll get that right. We use the Patreon mechanism for sponsorship, and there's various different ways that you can go along and put some finances into the channel if that's what you're into, just to fund prizes and events that we can do on these individual sessions. We haven't got a prize or a competition this time, but we are sponsored this time by Casper 365, which is my company, who have given us the time and the marketing for the event so far this time. So really great. If there are any sponsors out there, if you know any organisations that would like to sponsor by giving us some prizes or some cash giveaways, Amazon vouchers, which we've done, or some gifts for the speakers, anything nice like that. It's unfortunate that we don't have any swag we can give away. That used to be really great when we were in person. And And if you do want to find out more about the user group, we have the new community page on the Microsoft Tech Communities site. And this has come along leaps and bounds since we were on previous platforms. So Microsoft is now fully supporting the tech communities with the Power Platform user group pages. Please do go along and register to be a member, and then you'll get updates every time we're having an event, and we'll send emails out to you to let you know who the speakers are going to be and what kind of event is coming up. If you've got anybody in your organisation that would like to come and speak, please do get them to volunteer. We put a call for speakers out before every event, and we would love to have a variety of speakers. Today we had a fantastic variety. So from business user Andrew Henderson, we then had Microsoft MVP Thomas, and finally there Agent 18 from Schlumberger, showing us, you know, hints and tips on how to be powerful every day in the Power Platform. So really great content again, and thanks to speakers and for everybody for turning up and spending your time with us. We really appreciate it. I'm Sharon Sumner. It's been a delight to lead this Power Platform session for you, and we hope to see you soon. In person would be great, but if not, we'll be having our next event. Not quite sure when it's going to be, but look out on the site for the next announcement. Thanks, everybody.